Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with a video covering the gameplay experience I had playing Path of Exile 2 on a couch co-op controller in LA. Now the funny part here is that I was invited by Grinding Gear Games, big shout out to them, thanks so much for inviting me, and I got to have the chance to having a friend with me. I decided to have someone with me that I've been a childhood friend with for many years, and his name is Joan. Now he sucks. He is terrible at games. He has finished 2 games in his entire life, and they are Diablo 1 and Half-Life. So this basically means that this guy is as far from a gamer as you can get. He does like to play games, just doesn't make time for it. So I had a conversation with him and I said, you know what? I want to bring you to LA. I want to play this game with you. I want to hear your thoughts and your feedback on this. So off we went. Little trip over to LA, had a great time. Get to meet a ton of people. The event itself was an absolute banger. Get to meet a lot of the other content creators, and all of us having a passion for this game, and we sharing the excitement for its future. Now, I tend to focus this video on the general experiences playing the game and that of the couch co-op approach, and not deep dive any balance-related issues. Now, there were some abilities that was absolutely overtuned, whilst others were lackluster as expected. And my gameplay experience with my friend Johan here was very good. Much better than I ever thought it would be, having one experienced player playing the game together with someone who is completely fresh, and he himself had a really good time and an easy time learning Path of Exile, which was absolutely crazy to me to hear. Path of Exile was easy to learn for a new player. Let's dive into it. Comparing this playtest experience with the last, which was about 2 months ago, they progressed very well in an assuring direction. The idea of flask charges being more rare than a mirror is no more. Previously, the most commonly played build was the so-called well finder, where we essentially took a town portal back to town to click a well just to fill our flasks. With the iteration of Path of Exile 2 we got to play, this was no longer needed. Now, since my friend Johan was as fresh as a new player can be, he ended up using flasks a bit too many times, causing us to port back to town for a refill, which even then only happened less than a handful of times. Flask aside, and the results of all improvements since last time has been more than noticeable. Simple things such as improved drop rates of items made progression feel more fun. Jonathan himself confirmed that they have included hard-coded rare enemies that are always dropping X or Y item depending on the area, ranging from uncut gems to certain flasks to prepare the players for the upcoming challenges. Now this system is even checking so that if you haven't gotten this before, that rare will spawn in the next zone to enter a state of you being provided with a bare minimum state of your character's progression. Now this mechanic itself was not something I would even be aware of unless I was actually told, but it definitely helped with the natural progression as we moved through the campaign in the form of better loot, more items in general, but most importantly, tons of different skills, allowing me to have free choice of which skills I wanted to move forward with. A concern I had initially with couch co-op was that there'd be a ton of small nuisances with the gameplay experience. Now, GHAZZY has covered this in a very small quality of life additions, such as simple trade button allowing you to send an item from your inventory directly into the other player's inventory without needing to open trade or throwing the item out on the ground. Other things such as automatic downscaling when one player is higher level than the other is also covered in a similar fashion as to that of the current system in Path of Exile 1. Essentially, you can have a high-level character do an in-game content and then invite your fiancé or husband or family member or friend, and then basically they can level up a new character to try the game out and you can play with them, and the level downscaling will allow you to be there. As Jonathan said on the interview I had with him, basically the quest state will be of the player that has the least progressed state in their campaign, and that's where both players will then start off. Something PoE 2 is focusing a lot on is the new player acquisition, which is extremely hard to achieve whilst maintaining the difficult, complex soul that is Path of Exile. Now, I firmly believe that they've hit a good middle ground with this in PoE 2. You will not be having your hand held out throughout your gameplay. Instead, the game is doing an excellent job at providing easy-to-understand information, allowing the player to make sound decisions for their progression even when you come into the game with close to zero experience in the genre, such as my friend Johan. The best example of this would be to show you what happens when you reveal an uncut skill gem and are now presented with the choice of a new skill to pick. The game will present a list of recommended abilities for you to pick based off the class that you're playing. Now you can disable this and pick whichever you want, of course. However, now that the game is presenting you with a list of options that are recommended, it will help the newer players make decisions that will not stop their progression. This exact same system is actually implemented for support gems as well. There's a list of recommended support skills that are listed under each of the abilities that you currently have equipped, allowing you to better understand what to pick. Again, you can disable this and pick whatever you want, but the recommendation allows the player to learn what works with what. Speaking of skills and support gems, all sockets during the playtest were white and I didn't see a single chromatic orb. Now this decision is removing the potential issue of not having the correct colors, and it makes your skills and how you support them be entirely based around what the player wants the ability to do. They've also made it so that if you have, let's say, an added lightning damage support in one of your abilities, you're actually unable to support any other ability with the same support. Now, a common thing in PoE 1 is that there will always be the best way to support X or Y ability, which is just taking whatever support gives the most damage. Now, in PoE 2, we have access to a lot more links, of course, and now we'll be forced into making decisions with what support will go where, and this will hopefully present us with a higher diversity of builds moving forward. An example of this could be that you cannot put a added lightning support on several of your abilities, making you basically make a decision whether or not you want to put the increased damage of this specific type onto X or Y ability, and therefore you will have a larger variety of different support skills actually being used in the game. When it comes to playing with a controller, I was at first a bit on the fence. Last time I played an ARPG on a controller was actually Diablo 1 with my little sister. Now we went to mouse and keyboard with Diablo 2 and then never looked back ever since. Now thanks to the auto-target locking, it didn't feel bad to play with a controller at all. Now the statement of having 24 keybinds was daunting at first, but when you realize that this includes keybinds such as Town Portal or making the minimap as an overlay or not, gets less scary very quickly. Both players in the couch can mess around with their skill tree, inventory, or adjust skills whilst the other player is playing, due to being able to drag the other player if that player ends up on the edge of the screen. Now this allows you to have a consistent progression even when playing with someone who's less experienced or just needs more time with their inventory management or happens to be needing a little bit of a snack break. You can line up synergy as well between the skills you're using, such as one player creating gas clouds and the other player exploding said gas clouds with fire-related abilities, to name one example. On the topic of feedback, my main issue with the mobile action, where you're expected to essentially be on the move consistently mid-fights, is keybinds. Something like flasks needs to be able to be used while you're on the move, so having those keybinds for your right thumb makes the most sense, and since most offensive abilities requires you to be aiming, you'll need both thumbs on the sticks for mobility and target forcing offensive abilities to end up on the trigger keys on the controller. A lot of these concerns was put to rest with the simple keybind changes, and the auto-target locking alleviated a lot of these concerns, making me basically a proud Trevor fan. It also made me feel like a controller would feel better to play on for PoE 2. Main reason for this is that I actually dislike using a classical MMO mouse. This forces some odd keybinds for both flasks as well as the abilities, whilst being able to move with the WASD keys. Therefore, I think I would actually prefer the controller. Enemy HP scales with the amount of players in the party, but the stagger bar currently in the version that we played doesn't seem like it is for now. It's a small bar beneath the target's health bar, as it was very easy to stagger bosses whilst the other player focused on dealing damage, causing bosses to be very, very easy compared to how they were last time we played. The rest of my feedback is mainly around balance issues, which I don't feel like complaining about as we're playing the game in a state that is not even in early access yet. I'd like to give a big shout out to Grinding Gear Games for the opportunity to playtest PoE 2 in LA, and thank both them and the other participating content creators for an amazing couple of days. And I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts in the comment below, what you guys think of PoE 2 now that you've seen quite a lot of content of it. In the coming days, you'll see a lot more on this channel, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the like button, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Till then, as always, stay safe, keep rocking.